You're listening to the Clutter Fairy Weekly, a weekly webcast and podcast brought to you by the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas. If you'd like to participate in one of our live webcasts, please visit cfhou.com/weekly. You'll find a calendar of upcoming webcasts, as well as instructions for joining the Zoom meeting via the app or by phone. We'd love to see you. That URL again is cfhou.com/weekly. Now here's the weekly episode. Enjoy.
Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. This is the Clutter Fairy Weekly for December 3rd, 2024. I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gayle Goddard, certified professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas.
Hi, everybody. The Clutter Fairy Weekly is the webcast and podcast that digs deep into the clutter that piles up between you and the life that you want to be living. We explore the habits and behaviors that lead to clutter, and we suggest strategies to slow the accumulation, reduce the collection, and comfortably manage the stuff we decide to keep.
If you're new to our Zoom meeting, we want to let you know that you can share your comments and questions via the chat feature, and I'll try to make sure Gayle addresses them before we move on to another topic. You can also use the raised hand feature if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment yourself via audio or video. And we're also streaming the webcast live on Facebook, so you can share your questions and comments there, and I'll relay them to Gayle. We're going to start by recapping last week's weekly tittle, which was called Give Thanks. The assignment was an exercise in gratitude for all the riches in your life that aren't stuff. I think that was our first ever tittle that really was not about clutter.
Yep. Or
Is
thinking about clutter or analyzing clutter or all of that. I think you're right.
And we'd love to hear from our participants in Zoom and on Facebook to find out who counted their blessings this week. Please let us know in the comments. YouTube viewer Ms. Lee Knight shared a comment that may not have been intended as a tittle report, but it fits the bill. So here goes. Ms. Lee Knight says, I'm grateful for the small corners of YouTube like Clutter Fairy, where people are kind and civil to each other and are more interested in helping than judging.
Thank you, Ms. Lee Knight. We appreciate you ranking us as part of the non-judgmental corner of YouTube. We appreciate the kind notice of our goal that is to support you and to not belittle your efforts in getting organized. We are all about trying to be supportive and helpful and acknowledging that regardless of what does and doesn't work, it can always be restarted and you can always make headway no matter where you're coming from or how you're struggling. So thank you for noticing that. We appreciate you very much. We're very grateful that you're here. And you're a frequent commenter. We appreciate that as well.
Yeah, we see Ms. Lee Knight in there quite a bit.
Right.
Lots of talk in the chat about things we talked about before we started, like your repairs, your home repairs, and
my endless home repairs. Ugh.
Yeah. But I am not seeing any more tittle reports yet. So maybe we'll come back to those and just start into our main topic. How's that sound?
I'm happy with that.
So, is your home a monument to the past, a stockpile for future needs, or a place dedicated to living your best life right now? Finding balance among these roles can help clarify your toughest clutter challenges. Today, we're going to examine how nostalgia for the past and plans for every possible future can contribute to clutter and suggest ways to clear space for a rich and satisfying present life.
This topic came to us from a viewer's question in response to a recent survey. Jean asked, do you feel that traditions cause more clutter? How do we balance respect for the past with the need for easy lifestyle of our own? Ed and I thought about the balancing respect for the past with an easy lifestyle in the present. And that led us to today's topic. We realized as we talked about the stuff saved from the past and stockpiling things against the future, that it was crowding out our needs for what was right now. And so if the past reminders or the future potentials were allocated too large a portion of the home, then there really was no room left for what we needed right now. I'm sure you've seen all the advice out there about living in the present moment and all the mental health benefits that come from that point of view. Since you can't change the past, no matter how much you dwell on it, and you can't predict the future, no matter how clever you are, being in the present moment is really all that we can truly manage. We mentioned before that cluttering your space reflects your state of mind. And if you're focused on the past or trying to predict the future, the clutter in your house reflects that focus. But our home is where we live in this moment, and it needs to support our life and what we're doing right now. So filling that space full of things from our past or full of things to support many potential futures is destined to make living in the present much more difficult. Symbols and detritus from the past are varied in size, style, and quantity. You may have inherited a bunch of furniture or art from relatives, some of that coming with origin stories about your family history or genealogy. You might be saving a lifetime of cards, letters, and gifts received from the people that have moved in and out of your orbit over the course of your lifetime. You may be a parent who's saving evidence of a child's lifetime growing up with you, or the reminders and support materials from a past career, a previous work life that you aren't doing anymore. They're kind of like a fishing buoy that's dropped into the sea, there for you to grab onto when you want to remember things that have gone by and sunk into the depths of your memory. We also collect things for our potential futures. Sometimes that looks like all the stuff we say because it's still useful and we might need it. Or the shopping that we do when we have a new idea for an activity that we might do in the future. Someday I might take scuba lessons, so I need to go buy all the equipment now. I'm going to lose weight in the future, so I must need to keep those smaller size clothes so I don't have to spend money. I think I'll have a garage sale someday, so I need to save anything that would go into a sale.
Ooh, that's a big trap.
Right? We have ideas for plans that we maybe are going to do someday. And the first thing that we do is shop for the stuff to support the idea and end up with aspirational clutter taking up space in our homes instead. You know who you are. If you're the person who has an idea or finds something interesting and your first instinct is to buy stuff rather than to make an action or an implementation plan instead, then you know what I'm talking about. Just having an idea of a potential activity in the future is not a good enough reason to buy all the stuff that goes with the idea. Not until you've done some planning to actually do whatever that activity is. Either way, we end up with the remnants of our past eras and the possibility of a maybe future activity or event parked in the house, taking up space in the present. When those past and future ideas take over, the present can get squeezed out pretty quickly, making the harm so much harder to manage. And we wanted to get your take on this. And so let's start by talking about our survey responses. We wrote that survey around those questions. And first off, we asked our audience to complete the following statement. My home could serve as a museum to fill in the blank. And you could also say serve as a museum or a monument, museum of or a monument to fill in the blank. Anne is the first person that we quoted, and she wrote back that her museum was a museum of old sentimental artwork. So I'm sure all of you can relate to that. That artwork might be from your kids, or maybe you have an artist in the family whose collection you've inherited, or you're an artist yourself with a lifetime collection of your own work. Every house has a finite amount of wall space for hanging things. And even if you're clever and design a way to hang many things in a decorative way on the walls, you still have a limit of what can go up. If you're saving it for others, give it to them now. If you just have the collection and no way to hang any more pieces, you need to decide what makes the cut and release the rest. No one coming after you will be able to hang more than you do right now. So envisioning that somehow this artwork that's against the wall or in the closet or the pieces that are saved somewhere that are all waiting to be put up are going to suddenly be in a space that can hold all of them is not a realistic point of view. It's not thinking too clearly about what a house can show you and what a house can absorb and what it can't. So if you can't hang it, the next house probably can't hang all of it either. So you might as well figure out a way to split the collection up and send some of it on.
We'll be right back. Why were we never warned about how difficult it would be to run a small business? There are so many difficult decisions and so much drama. In the wake of the pandemic, the drama and difficult decisions have only increased. In the Managing Dental Drama podcast, host Bethany Petty, practice management consultant, and Dr. Rena Kuba, private practice owner, find a way to laugh at the drama and also discuss relevant and real problems as well as the solutions. Find Managing Dental Drama on your preferred outlet and join the conversation today.
Okay, Lynn says, Museum of 1940s era crystal dishware set. That was my mom's wedding gift from her parents. I don't
Mm.
use it. No one expresses an interest in it when asked, but I have a difficult time deciding to donate it to charity shops that are already overflowing with similar dishware. It doesn't have a strong sentimental value to me. It just feels a shame to add such pretty dishes to the piles of unwanted, dusty ones in shops. They are out of the way, filling a ceiling-high bookshelf. I don't need the space they occupy for anything, so there is no pressure to do something with them. I'm going to see if I can make something crafty out of them.
It is true that there is a lot of this type of product out in the market, and adding more seems like giving up in some way, like you're just relegating it to a shelf somewhere. But why not send it to Replacements Limited instead? They collect all that kind of crystal dishware, uh, any kind of dish sets in a warehouse in at Replacements Limited location, North Carolina, so that anybody that owns a particular pattern of dishware, silverware, crystal, they can go and get replacements for that specific pattern. And so that way, someone with a pattern can get those replacement pieces when something breaks, and it stays in a warehouse waiting for the buyer for that specific pattern to show up. So it's good that you have the space to hide the stuff, but if you don't like it enough to use it, better to reclaim that footprint and put the items in front of a collecting audience instead. Ship them off. You'll get paid a little bit of it. They're going to, clearly they're going to pay wholesale prices based on demand for those patterns. And if you if you just need it to go, then that's a place where you can go get some money out of it and put it in front of the best potential audience for collecting that particular pattern in future.
Yeah, the people who are really looking for that specific thing.
Yeah.
Unlike Goodwill, where it could just
Mhm.
sit there on the shelf for years before a buyer who wants, who's attracted to that pattern happens to run across it.
Yeah, yeah. And it's true that people that have sets and things break, particular designs didn't work, and the dinner plate in this particular pattern is weak and it gets broken a lot, or the coffee cups, the design means that the handle snaps off a lot, or there's always design flaws in a particular pattern that make some pieces more susceptible to breakage than others. And replacing those things as they break becomes, um, a problem for someone that actually has a collection, has a pattern, and uses it. And so being able to go to Replacements Limited and saying, I need this particular type of cup from this particular pattern is they're more likely to have it than anybody else on the planet. And if you send it to
Right.
them, then you're making it available to somebody who's going to collect.
I got most of our dinnerware is from replacements because we found some Royal Doulton 1815 stuff, a pattern I really liked. It's really, really simple with just the pieces are just dipped in pastels and glazed and very, very simple. And
Hmm.
it was a 1815, so I guess that was the 200th anniversary of the Royal Doulton brand. And
Ah,
so they rolled out this stuff that was very similar to what they were producing 200 years ago. Very lots of simple straight lines and nothing very fussy,
not elaborate.
not a lot of ornamentation. And we found some through where outlet stores, very
Mm,
cheap, and then filled in some filled in more pieces from replacements and eBay and everywhere else we could find them. And that's
exactly.
replacements.com. The company's called Replacements Limited. we asked. Oh, D made the comment that replacements only accepts the pieces they want. They
It's
don't take
true.
they don't take whole sets, so you'll end up with random pieces of a formerly full set of dishes, which will be useless. That is a very
Well,
good point.
good point. Um, and it'll reduce the volume of the number of pieces that you have. So if you're not using it anyway, the fact that it splits up doesn't matter.
Right,
And if you're a crafty person, you can use the other pieces for something crafty. They can be repurposed, that kind of stuff. Or the pieces that replacements won't take can go out and go to Goodwill. And the truth is, replacements, because of what they do and how long they've been doing it, they know what the demand is versus the supply. So they know they have long experience of this pattern is super popular and the cups are always broken. And so we always need the cups because those are the ones
right.
that people are always trying to find. This one, they sold a lot of it, but nobody wants it now. And so there's no demand for it. So we have a huge supply and no demand. And so they will turn that kind of stuff away. But it's based on what they know from experience in terms of their own sales. And so you'll get real-time feedback about whether somebody actually cares about that pattern or not based on
Right.
how replacement limited reacts to your pattern
Yeah.
or the pieces of your pattern.
Pat
And
suggests Pat suggests put dishes on Facebook Marketplace for free if you want to donate. Someone may like them.
yeah,
My only
like
modification to that suggestion is don't make them free, make them very, very cheap.
right.
Because if you make them free, you'll get 2,000 inquiries. And if you make them $10, you'll get 150 inquiries or some similar ratio.
It'll be easier to manage the response.
Yes. And you
Yeah,
can always
gotcha.
still give them away for free when they come to get it.
Right? Exactly.
Um,
That's a fair point.
Roads just check with a homeless center. They will know who is helping people get into housing, and these people need everything, including dishes.
Exactly. Habitat for Humanity is exactly that kind of place. If they have a restore, they will often take donations of things to build the houses, but then they also take things to stock the houses as well. So you might be able to donate your dishes at a Habitat for Humanity restore if you have one in your area. Houston does, and I know they have them all over the country.
Okay, Kathy says her home is a museum of Norman Rockwell. Cups, cups, plates, pictures, and figurines, not to forget print calendars in totes. And
Oh
those
my.
and those boxes may make it worth more. So yep, you got it. Totes of empty boxes.
Oh my God, that just makes me crazy. The collection of empty boxes makes me want to scream out loud. Every time I find one, I'm like, oh my God, the stupid empty boxes again. So I have no idea whether Norman Rockwell is super collectible or not. I do know that it's popular. He has managed to continue to be top popular for a long time. And so there's probably people out there that are collecting this stuff. If you love it, then it's something that you should make room for. And I don't know whether do you love it or did you inherit it? If it's something that you want to interact with your daily life, then you want to create an appropriate display for the items and that it shows that it's a priority in your life. If you inherited it and it's not really something that you're interested in, then it's time to send that stuff on for sure. There's probably the cups and plates. Again, you could probably roll them through Replacements Limited to see if they wanted some. There's probably people out there collecting Norman Rockwell, just like there's people that collect the Christmas tree plates at Christmas time, that dishware that has the Christmas tree pattern on that everybody collects.
Hmm.
So going about the business of rehoming these things to someone else that likes them gets them out of the way. But it's definitely you inherited the collection, or if you made the collection yourself, looking back at it now and saying, okay, I had fun collecting all this stuff, and now there's 300 pieces, and I can't possibly put it all out. And so, what am I going to do with it now? And it's okay that you collected it over time and you can change your mind about it in the future. It's okay that you can still love it and want to keep it all. But I think you have to decide this is one of those things that either you got it as an inheritance, and it's sort of so it's historical to you and it's part of your past, or you're actively collecting it in the present and this is some of your own entertainment right now, and so it should be reflected that way in the house. Or it can be, you can be done with it and you can pass it on to the next person. I it is it totally depends on how you see the collection and how you ended up with the collection, which direction you want to go. But it's an example of, we love building collections, but when you end up with 400 pieces of something, your house doesn't really have the capacity to show all of that. And so figuring out a way to display what you can, maybe trade it out and update it over time, and keeping that kind of stuff circulating so that you see it and that it reflects the importance to you is important. And finding out you're saving all the boxes because that's going to make it worth more. I get it, but only if you're actually going to release them.
Yeah, if
If
you
you're
have an
not,
active plan to do something.
if
Yeah.
you're not going to release them, and if you think that you're saving those boxes for the person that inherits Norman Rockwell from you, is then going to put them back in their box and try to sell them and make money off of them, like, you have to ask that question of the people that are going to end up with your stuff. If they're not going to do that work, if they're just going to make that stuff disappear, then you don't need to save it against, it's going to be more money, right? So I, be realistic about what to do with the collection, how long you have it, how you're going to distribute it. And if you love it and no one else in your family loves it and they're going to get it and go, whatever, I'm getting rid of this stuff, then you don't need to save the boxes anymore. Like, don't worry about it.
Okay, let's go on. Here's an interesting one. Kim says she manages the Museum of Out of Focus Photographs.
So I'm curious whether you have them because you have a hard time letting go of them because of who's in the pictures. I do think I mean, that's some of the first advice that I give people when I tell them to go through their photography collections when they're trying to manage the reams of photographs they've inherited from their relatives and the photographs they've taken in their lifetime. They're trying to manage them. And one of the first things I say is, if it's not a good picture, if it's not in focus, let it go. Use the picture that is in focus. Keep the one that looks good, and don't keep the one that's not, that wasn't a good result. That somebody had a moment of blip and made everything all blurry. What's the point of keeping that one? So unless you have a picture, an out of focus picture of somebody famous, it's not really, or that out of focus picture is the only picture that anybody has of this relative or this event or whatever, then those are the kinds of things that you don't need to have a museum of out of focus pictures. So ask yourself why you're keeping them. Do you have better ones? Are there out of focus ones and you have also great in focus ones of the same person or event? And then, let those go.
And it does not look as if Kim is with us here.
Okay.
But I'll check Facebook and see in case she happens to be watching us there. Let us
Okay.
know, because whether you're talking about paper photos where maybe you're just overwhelmed by the project of
Mm.
digging through all those paper photos to cull the out of focus ones that aren't worth keeping, or maybe it's a digital problem that she's having, and it's just, like Jean said, I have hundreds of photos of my dog. I need to let go of half of them to make space on my phone. And I say, you only have hundreds of photos of your dog. You obviously have much greater restraint than I do, because I am sure that my phone contains thousands of
I
photos of
know.
I mean, granted, Hardy is the cutest dog on the planet.
Right.
He's extremely photogenic. Let's go.
However,
Let's go on. I had one more I wanted to share with you on this particular question.
okay.
Evelyn says she has a museum of unfinished craft projects.
Oh, there you go. There you go. So I can totally relate. I understand. I know a lot of people that live in that space. Crafty people start stuff and they don't always finish it. And so I totally get that sometimes your interest wanes, your enthusiasm fades, the moment of creative juice around, you have an idea and you try it and you don't like the results. And so you stop before it's incomplete. And so uh, going back and evaluating the museum of unfinished craft projects is, you can go back and depending on how much time has passed since you were actively doing it and then now you're looking at it again, you can evaluate, okay, I started this. Is there even the remotest possibility that I would ever pick this up and do it again? And usually you have a very clear answer in your mind right away because there's a reason why you stopped. It was too hard. It was not fun. You didn't like the color. It didn't gel like you thought it was going to. You didn't end up with the results that you had in your head. That is not what came to pass in real life. And so there's ways for you to look at it and decide, here's my response to this craft project, and I would never pick it up. I did it for a while. It was interesting for a minute, but we can be done with it. And so dismantle it, take it apart, salvage any materials that you can salvage, and move on. Let it go. Start it again. I mean, I think that every crafter has a few of those things in their life. And so being in that place of housing a bunch of unfinished projects that you're not interested enough in to go and finish while you have moved on to the newest, latest, greatest things that you're working on is just taking up room in your space. And so that's a perfect example of the unfinished craft project is definitely something from your past. And does it really need space in the house now? Like while it was your present and while you were working on it, it was a craft project that you were trying to have fun and be entertained with and interactive about. But if it has faded off of your current focus and the likelihood is that it's never going to come back, then sending it on to somebody who would finish it or dismantling it and recovering the materials and letting the unfinished project go away is, I think, the best course of action. So you don't end up drowning. Because I know you have a bunch of supplies. Any crafty person has a bunch of supplies already. They don't also need a big pile of, I'm never going to come back to these projects again, taking up space.
Okay, let's go on. Our next question. So that question was kind of aimed at getting, past
Yeah,
issues,
historical.
ghosts of the past.
Mm.
And the next question was more about the future. We asked our viewers and listeners to complete the following statement. My home is a warehouse for blank. And Amy gave the almost archetypical answer,
Right.
semi-functional items just in case.
Oh, so if that eventuality does happen, whatever the just in case is, will those semi-functional items really be that helpful? Can you imagine another way to deal with a problem that comes up? I think that whatever happened, whatever you're saving just in case, you probably have a fully functional way to deal with it. And that semi-functional way as a backup is not really necessary. We all deal with our levels of anxiety and worry about what might be coming down the road, what might need to be dealt with. But anything semi-functional, just in case, is really not it's meeting a very low bar for necessity in your house. And there's probably a whole lot of things that are in your present life that are actually fully functional and might be better choices if something comes up. And so I think that this is sort of like the backwater where you declare it, okay, it's just in case, I'll keep it just in case I need it, is really, I can't bear to throw away something that,
That still seems to have so much usefulness in it.
yeah, that still
Yeah.
has some ability to function. And so therefore I need to keep it stored in, the storage closet that is my house instead of letting it go on to somebody else. And so this is the little trap. This is the trap. This is the covering excuse that you give yourself to not give away something that isn't really your first choice and isn't really your best option and isn't what you would pick the first time around. And not making that choice just means that you live with a whole bunch of other stuff surrounding the things that you would actually pick first and the ideas that you would actually go to in to solve a problem in the moment, the ones at the top of your list. And so I say, make room for the things at the top of the list. Make sure you can see them and find them and use them. And the things that are not at the top of the list for problem solving, let them go out and not crowd your space up, so it's not hard to find the things that are actually going to be at the top of your list. That's my theory.
Okay, an anonymous respondent said their home is a warehouse for activities we started but never carried forward. Now that one sounds a little like I mean, there could be an element of attachment to the past, but it also sounds more like there's an element of aspirational clutter here.
Yeah, exactly. So they started some activities and didn't complete. And so started those activities probably includes buying materials for something and then never actually doing it. And we did talk about this earlier. We have an idea for a course of action. We're going to diet, we're going to hike, we're going to sell crafty items, we're going to refinish furniture. But the idea of an activity is not a real plan that is actually going to do the action. You're not going to go and do it just thinking about, here's my idea. Unless we make real plans on the calendar to engage in that activity, we're really just dreaming about potential what ifs. What if I have a garage sale? What if I refurnish furniture? And you're in the idea development stage, you're in the thought process stage. And our first go-to response is always, we have to go buy the stuff to go with it. It's like, no, this is not an excuse for you to shop. You're having an aspiration of something you want to do in the future. So go investigate it. Go find out if you really would do it. Go figure out a way to test the waters without investing in a bunch of stuff first. Go try it out. Would you really actually ever jump out of an airplane? Do you really want to sit in your garage and spend 2.5 hours sanding a piece of furniture that you're going to refinish? I don't know. I would say no. So it depends on how you imagine. Are you willing to do the things that you need to do to sacrifice, to schedule, to plan, to do this activity that you're talking about, that you're thinking of? And if you're not clear on your actual willingness to execute, then having the stuff against the plan, don't really want to go there. So you started, and this is, well, we were just talking about this in terms of crafty things, right? If you've started things and you've never carried forward, it's time to circle back and go, yeah, I said I was going to rebuild the fence, or I was going to repair the fill in the blank, or I was going to become a hiker, but I haven't actually done any of that. And whatever you've stored or bought against the possibility is now just getting tired and not current and deteriorating wherever you're storing it. So reevaluating those unfinished objects, unfinished plans, unfinished ideas is a way to go and evaluate. I had a plan, I had an idea of something to do. I bought some stuff to go with it, but I haven't done it for 5 years. That plan, that ship has sailed. Like it was a dream, not actually a plan. And so the dream can go, the stuff can go. And if you ever actually get in action around something, then you can go get equipment or supplies in that moment. But there's no point in in buying and then saving against a plan that you're not going to do for a decade. This is a way that potential futures jam up the works in your house because you save things because in some unknown future, I might be going to do that. And then it takes up space and gets things in the way. And I see a hand up.
Oh, who is that? Let's see.
That's Miss Linda.
Linda, go ahead, Linda. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Hi, I just wanted to mention an experience I had where taking a class, a workshop class for something was very helpful in helping me see that I couldn't make that thing a part of my life. What I wanted to take a class in was stained glass, and I
Ah.
made a very pretty thing. I loved doing it. And it was very clear that there was no way I would ever have a space in my house where it was safe to do that work and store all of that. And I didn't know that until I took the workshop. So sometimes trying something where
Right.
you buy a kit or take a
Yeah.
class in a kit is very helpful for that sort of thing.
Well,
So
and you actually you had the idea and you took the action, right? Like you went and took the class.
I
And
did
so
the doing rather than the
yes.
acquiring. Yeah,
Yes, exactly. And so you had a thought of a future a project, a future activity, and you tried it on for size and decided, ooh, no, not a good idea. One of my
right.
crafty friends has a similar story. Thank you for sharing, Linda. My friend Sandy decided that quilting looked like fun and she wanted to quilt. And she'd been a beater for years, but she decided that the whole making stuff with fabric seemed like it would be super fun and colorful and what a great idea. So she went and bought a bunch of stuff and then she went and took a class and she cried throughout the class and she told the teacher, I hate this and there is no way I can ever do it. And so she had the same experience. She tried to take the class and realized it made her the whole threading the fabric and using the machine, like the whole process just made her crazy. And she didn't feel like she understood it. And the teacher tried to coach her and she was just like, I cried throughout the class and then went home and said, never mind. She told me the story because we were working on a particular area of her house and she had never done anything with all the supplies that she bought. Like she went and preloaded with a bunch of fabrics and equipment and fancy sewing machine and all kinds of stuff. Like she got her stuff all stocked and then went to the class and realized she hated it with a passion. And so it wasn't really very successful for her. And then she had to turn around and get rid of all that stuff. So Linda did a better job of, she went and took the class first before she invested. And the idea of, people try kits and things. If you buy a kit from somebody that's teaching the process, then you can go and learn something and see whether the idea of it turns into your actual experience of that thing, whether you really do like it, whether you really will enjoy it, whether you really have an aptitude for it. And if not, then you don't have to, invest in a bunch of supplies for it. So good job, Linda. Sandy did her slightly differently, but learned from the same experience of the class. And I think that's an active way to take your potential idea into reality to test and see if it's really going to work before you stock your house with a bunch of stuff.
Okay, let's do one more answer to this question.
Okay.
It was actually one of the examples we gave for, sample answers. Clothing in a variety of sizes I have worn, and several people used that as their actual answer. So let's talk about that one a little bit, because that's obviously something a lot of our audience are warehousing.
I know, right? the you buy clothes because you like them. That's always the truth. You wish that you could stay the same size forever, but there's only a small percentage of the population that actually manages to stay the same time over the same size over their adult life. And the idea that you're keeping the clothes that you wore in high school or the clothes that you wore in your 20s or fill in the blank while I was doing this job or that job, and you're saving a bunch of clothes in all kinds of sizes. It's not really, I don't know why we're so attached to clothes in that way. It's not necessary to save all those clothes because ultimately, if you are somebody who rolls up and down sizes, you're still not going to wear all the clothes that are in your closet. You're still only going to wear a portion of the things that are that size. And so having all of those options in every size just overstuffs your closet and makes it super hard to wear the stuff that you do have and you would like to wear. And so there's always thinning of the herd that can happen with clothes and still provide you with options. And those clothes, the way that we treat style, they go out of style and they don't come back. When they come back, they don't come back in the same form that they were when you originally wore them. So the idea of saving it against when this trend comes back around again, it's like, yeah, but it's going to be super obvious that it's not a current version of the trend. It's the old version of the trend. So you're going to be, if you care about fashion and style, that kind of stuff matters. And if you don't care about fashion and style, then you might as well, you don't need to keep something for 20 years so that you can save $30 in the future on a fresh new piece of clothing. That clothing is sitting in your closet, deteriorating, getting old. It's disintegrating, depending on what they made out of it, how well they did it, the threads fall apart. It's just not a static item in your closet. It's not going to stay in perfect condition forever. And so rather than housing it and storing it in your closet, making the closet not very functional, and waiting for the object to completely disintegrate and fall apart, or overstretch, or be completely something that you wouldn't be comfortable wearing in public, you might as well send it on earlier rather than later. The likelihood that somebody could use it and wear it now is inversely related to how old it is. So if you put out something that's 2 years old, it's more likely it's going to get worn than if you put something into Goodwill that's 25 years old. And so consider that if you actually want it to be useful, you might as well let go of it sooner rather than later. There. Is that enough commentary on clothes?
I think that's great. Yeah. Okay. Next, we asked our audience, and we're going back to the past again. We asked our audience to describe something that you're keeping because it connects you with a past version of yourself, your family history, a former relationship, etc. And one of our responses from Ria was books. I now have dry eye and reading isn't the pleasure it once was. I used to devour them. Now very few get read.
So that is really, you're describing a past version of yourself, which is somebody who was actively reading, and now it's not as much, it's not as pleasant. So you have to read in a different way. And I'm guessing you moved on to audiobooks or something else so that you're not having to focus your eyes on printed word anymore. The fact that you have all those books and you can't read them doesn't diminish the fact that you read in your past. It's just another version of yourself. And so if you're done with those books and it's not likely that you're going to read a bunch of them, then maintaining a large library then becomes a reflection of an old you and not the current you. So if the current you is somebody that's not reading hard paper, actual paper books in the same volume, like you're reading a little bit, but you're not reading at the same level that you were before, then maintaining the library to support that activity doesn't make sense anymore. You can reduce the library to the small quantity that you're actually able to read right now. And that's totally worth making that shift, because having all those books that you used to read and can't read and aren't going to read anymore is just taking up a lot of space in your house, and preventing other people from reading those books as well, that this doesn't need to, you don't need to give that space away in your current life to keeping a library.
Okay. Noreen says, Christmas ornaments I remember from childhood. I'm getting better each year at letting more of them go and only keeping what I really love.
That's good. That's very good. And and it does reflect the evolution of Christmas over time, right? What you did as a child is not exactly what you're doing now, and it's not exactly what you're going to do in the future. And so having that collection constantly refreshing every year as you go through and put things up and take things out, and what you can manage this year you may not like next year. And so it's a perfect example of updating the collection every time you put it up makes it reflect what's currently going on, what's currently important in your life at Christmas time in this year versus, 5 years ago or when you were 6. And so having that collection be a fluid, refreshing, constantly evaluated thing is a great way to have Christmas be part of your life and not be an ever growing, backing up collection of stuff in your house. Good job.
Couple comments I want to throw in. Um, this is on the clothing issue. BB says, I've given up on the I'll totally fit into this again someday mentality. I keep getting bigger over the years, just more of me to love.
Exactly. And no point in hiding those clothes in your closet, right? So let them go on. Good
And
job.
Naomi mentioned as we age, we sag and change shape. Even if we get down to that dream weight, we won't fit into the clothes from our youth,
Those the parts are not hanging in the same place anymore.
right?
That's totally true. You're right about that. I need to add that. Like the way that you, unless you are super athletic and working really hard on maintaining your body shape, even so, the parts are moving around and they won't fit in the clothes in the same place that they were to begin with. So that's a valid point of view.
Well, and you also run the risk of like calling attention to your age by wearing that thing from your distant past that you managed to squeeze back into,
It
right?
is
I
not age
mean,
appropriate for you now.
right.
100%. Yeah.
Marcia mentioned a pandemic food supply that is rapidly expiring.
Uh-oh. Yeah, if you had a little pandemic food shopping panic and ended up stockpiling a bunch of food, yeah, it's time to get in there and start eating that stuff up, right? Reduce the collection. We're not sick in the house. The supply chains have recovered. It's you're going to be able to get food. So time to be eating up and diminishing your overstuffed pantry.
Or donating the heck out of it if you've
Oh
got
yeah,
things that
yeah.
are
If you
still haven't
you can,
hit
yeah,
their
you can.
expiration date.
'Tis the season, right? To donate to a worthy cause. You can go put that stuff in the food bank. Absolutely.
And Marcia did say there's a 0% likelihood. We asked for people to evaluate the likelihood that they would use things they've stockpiled for the future.
Yeah.
And on the I'm jumping ahead to the next question, she said 0% likelihood. I think I'll donate it to a food pantry before Christmas. Good for
Oh,
her.
great idea. Yeah, that's perfect. Exactly. And then, that's you're just helping build up their stockpiles because they give away a lot of stuff at the holidays, but then it's January and February and they don't have stuff that they need. So you might as well help stock their coffers with excess stuff that they will help them get through the early part of the year.
Okay, the last question on our survey, we asked our community to describe something that you're keeping for a future need, whether real or imagined. And we also asked them, what is the likelihood that you will use the item in question within the next year or 5 years or whatever time frame you consider reasonable?
Mhm.
Um, Anne answered baby books and items. She didn't give a
Oh.
timeline for her becoming a grandmother,
So we
but
don't know the status of the grandchildren that she's going to give them to, right?
right, right.
So this is the one that hangs up
It's
a
not
lot of
it's not
mothers,
happening in any big hurry, let's say that.
right? I think that lots of moms have the stuff from their kids. Their kids are like, I don't want that stuff, mom. But you remember how cute it was when your kids played with it, fill in the blank. It was so great. It's still useful. Kids roll over, they change size and abilities quickly. And so they get bigger and outgrow stuff before things have been completely destroyed or even before they've been worn out sometimes. And so lots of moms get stuck in the trap that either A, we're going to save it for the next kid I have, or B, we're going to save it for my grandkids, which is just an excuse to go and park the stuff in an attic or a closet or a basement for the next 25 years waiting for that kid to show up. And I get it that, it'd be great for things to get reused, but you have your full collection of things that you bought when your kids were around, and your grandkids, the parents of your grandkids, are going to be building their own collection of stuff for their own kids. They're not going to want all of your stuff to come to their house. And they're not going to appreciate them all in the same way. They're not going to think that they're, current. They won't go with the current trends of parenting, blah, blah, blah. So a little bit, one or two of those items might be useful, but the whole child's collection of stuff is not going to be useful. And rather than have it sit there and deteriorate for 25 years or 30 years, depending on how long it takes your kid to have kids, you might as well send that on and let somebody use it currently. When you have determined that you're not going to have any more kids, then it's time to release that stuff to some mother that needs them right now and let them be reused that way instead of saving them for the grandkids. Everybody has this is the rocking chair that my grandfather built for my, fill in the blank. Like there's always some historical items that get passed down, but that's, two or three things, not the 150 pieces of clothing and the 5,000 toys that you have over your own kid's lifetime. And so better to release those currently while they can still be used and save the one or two things that are being passed down generation to generation for the kids that might be important for you to save from a genealogy or a family history point of view. And then, everything else, poof, poof, let it go find a baby that needs it.
Okay, an anonymous respondent answered this question with a mother of the groom dress that I bought 10 years ago. Son unlikely to marry, not my current size. I will likely never wear it ever. It's a past dream that doesn't take up much space. It's beautiful. And I wanted to include this one because of those last two statements, really. It doesn't take
Doesn't
up much
take up much
space,
space. Mm-hmm.
and it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to kind of get your responses to that because I can sort of like almost imagine the yes, but that you will go into on this.
That I'm going to say yes,
Yeah,
but so yes, you can keep one piece of clothing and store it in your closet because it's pretty and be reminded that the plan that you had for that dress is the event hasn't happened yet and there's no plan for that event to happen, and B, you can't wear it anyway, so it's a ghost, I guess is the best way to say it. It's a
yeah,
ghost of a plan, of an idea, of a thought that you were going to have about something that would happen in the future. And when you bought the dress, there was, the potential still existed of it happening in that way. Now it doesn't fit. There's no plans for your kid to get married. And so right now, and so the idea of it had its potential and now its potential has completely diminished to nothing. And so, do you want to change its status from I'm going to wear this at the wedding someday, which is 100% zero, right? That you're not going to do that. Or do you want to say this is a keepsake of an idea that I had and I think the dress is pretty. And so do you want it as a keepsake piece of clothing? And how much other keepsake pieces of clothing do you have? If this is one and done, or then okay, if it's one of 100 pieces of clothing that you're keeping because it's pretty and it reminds you of something, then I would have to argue against it. You don't want 100 pieces of keepsake clothing in your closet. So that's surrendering too much space to keepsakery instead of actual use. And in a closet, there's always fight for space and usable and functionality of a closet with being overstuffed with too many clothes. And so having one dress is one thing, having 100 things is another point of view. So depending on what you have and how much you have, I would say, yes, if you want to keep the dress as a keepsake, fine. But if you find that looking at the dress, even though it's pretty, reminds you of the fact that that plan that you had for your son has not happened and is not going to evolve, it's not going to happen the way that you imagined it as a mother, it's going to happen some other way. And so you can sort of acknowledge that that ship has sailed, that plan has gone to dust. The universe has a different plan for him and for you about this. And so you can let that one go and get ready for the next, the next plan, the actual plan that happens. If you don't particularly want to keep the dress other than it's pretty, maybe you just take a picture of it and have a photo of the dress and send it on, let somebody use it. If it makes you thrilled to have that hanging in your closet, even though you know you can't wear it and the event for which it was made is never going to happen or isn't planned to happen anytime soon, then okay. But I do wonder whether it feels like a wistful reminder of something that you imagined and did not come to pass, and whether you want to have that reminder in your closet or not. And that's up to you about how you feel about that. That's what I have
Okay,
to say about that.
excellent. Okay, just one more. Jennifer says, my housemates have a ton of supplies for decorating holiday cookies. In all the years I have been here, none of that stuff has been used.
Yeah. There's something about the support to make holiday cookies that feels everybody's really nostalgic about that, and it seems like it should be fun and it would be a great activity to do as a group, and how much fun. And yeah, and then no.
And then
So
no one
and then
has the time.
no one actually ever does it. And so my brother-in-law, he makes cookies at Christmas time, and they have, a collection of, they do these 5 or 6 family recipes, and they all get in there and play and do. And so for him, it actually comes to pass, and I show up at Christmas time and there's cookies everywhere. But and then they're moaning about how many cookies they have and how they don't want to eat them all, and who's going to come and eat these cookies, and we have to take cookies and give cookies, and yeah, they're simultaneously enjoying the activity and then sad about all the cookies that are there to tempt them for the season. So it's a catch-22 for them, I think. But it's true that that's an example of decorating cookies for whatever, whether it's the holiday season or, birthday or whatever, is a fun activity that people do traditionally at the holiday season. And if you like the idea of it, but you don't ever actually do it, then having half the kitchen full of supplies around it is probably not necessary. And
Well,
maybe you need to send it on.
and obviously it's not Jennifer's.
It's not her
They belong
stuff,
to her housemates, but she could, offer maybe a gentle nudge in the right direction and say,
right?
so are we going to maybe make some cookies this year, or should we give that stuff away to someone who will?
Right. I mean, and even if there's resistance, you can say, okay, but it takes up so much space in the kitchen. Can we pare this down to a much smaller collection? Can we get rid of 60% of it, 75% of it, and keep the possibility of doing cookies, but with a much smaller original set of things
Yeah.
to do with, so that we don't have to store against an activity that is clearly not happening and hasn't happened and doesn't seem likely to happen in future.
Okay, we have run ourselves just about out of time here. I'm going to let everyone know we'll be back next week, Tuesday, December 10th at the usual time. We have not settled on our topic for that one yet, so watch your email for an announcement. Gayle, why don't you give us the title?
This week's title is Interrogate Your Ghosts. This week's assignment is to evaluate and exercise a ghost of your past or future. In other words, to eliminate an item of clutter that signified your past or that you've saved for the just in case future. Scan your home for an item or collection that meets any of the following criteria: materials or tools for a project that you may never finish, supplies for an art or craft you've left behind, mementos of a relationship that you just as soon forget, stockpiles of items you expected to need but still haven't used up yet, paperwork or related materials for a job or a career you've left behind.
And we could add anything else that any other category we've talked about today. Clothes in a size you no longer wear.
Right? Cookie making supplies that you are never going to do. All of that stuff. Reflect on whether you still want, need, or reasonably expect to use the item or collection in question. And if not, make a plan to discard, donate, or give away the clutter. That is what we're hoping for. Come back and tell us about it, think about it, and come back and tell us about it.
If you're watching this on YouTube, we would love for you to join us live. To get notifications about upcoming events, we invite you to join the meetup group by visiting cfhou.com/meetup. You can also follow us on Facebook by visiting cfhou.com/Facebook, or join our mailing list by visiting cfhou.com/subscribe. We love to hear from you, so please send your questions, comments, and topic suggestions on YouTube, Facebook, or anywhere that you find us. You can always reach us through our website at clutterfairyhouston.com.
And somebody was asking about the show last week because I missed it. And so I'm going to throw up cfhou.com/YouTube to go get to the videos that are already recorded and parked on YouTube. If you missed an episode, you can go and see them there. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you. And we will be back next week.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.